The PlayStation Classic's a more capable system than we initially had thought, especially with all the hacking, the crazy stuff going on out there. It's really an awesome device. A lot of people are enjoying this. Now, today, what we're going to be looking at is a new standalone RetroBoot build for the system. 64 gigabytes, has over 6,500 games, everything from Atari 2600 to the original PlayStation and a little beyond, just a little bit, but tons of awesome games. Now, if you're interested in finding out more about RetroBoot, you can go to this Reddit page. I'll put a link in the description. They do have the standalone and the RetroBoot with Auto Bleem on here. All the release notes, the features, all that good stuff, the downloads, the add-ons. Pretty cool stuff. So if you want to build your own setup, this is the place to go to get RetroBoot going. I think it's a damn fine application for the PlayStation Classic, but I didn't want to dwell on this too much. I just want to take a look at this pre-built setup and kind of showcase some of the games, how everything works, what it looks like, give you guys my thoughts and opinions. So with that said, let's go ahead and switch on over to the PlayStation Classic. So here we go. Everything boots up just like normal. You get that Sony Interactive Entertainment. The one thing I do want to point out is this system I'm using, I just recently opened it and I've never gone through the settings or anything. I've only ever booted it with the USB drive in it. So I think that's why the little language thing pops up for a split second, but there you go. So we are on the most current RetroBoot, the 0.8 version with RetroArch 1.7.7. Now, before we get into this, check out a few games. I do want to show that the bezels, are there, how the games run, and talk about that a bit. But I know there's going to be some criticisms first off saying, man, this RetroBoot stuff, man, there's no graphics. I'm not seeing any video snaps or wheel art or box art or anything like that. And I get it. Some people want that flashiness, but I think this is still a cool setup without that because it's very simple to navigate. Very easy to just pick your game and get going. And that's what it's about, is playing games. There are options, things you can configure if you really want to dive into it. But everything's just set up. The buttons work fine with the included controllers. Everything's pre-mapped, ready to go. So I think a lot of people will still enjoy this. So we will jump into a handful of games. We don't want to make this an hour-long video, so we're not going to test out every system. But I have tested every system. And the bezels are proper for each system. Everything's looking and running good. But here's the included consoles that we have. And most of them are the complete library of games. So we have Atari 2600, tons of games, a lot of cool stuff. I'm not a big fan of playing those old games, but some people are. 7800 does have some cool stuff. Like I said, complete library of games for most of these systems. Atari Lynx as well. Really cool. I had one of these for the longest time. When it came out. I'm pretty sure it's probably still at my parents' house somewhere, but I really love the Lynx. Some people don't really care to play portable games on their big screen TV. I'm kind of one of those people, but some people really dig it, and it is cool to have this set up. Final Burn Alpha arcade games. This is going to be your Neo Geo stuff. Neo Geo Mini ain't got nothing on this, man. We got the complete Neo Geo library here. Really awesome stuff. You want to play some Twinkle Star sprites? It is there. MAME, boom, all your arcade games, your Street Fighters, your horizontal and vertical shooters. I believe this is set up where it has just the basic bezel, the standard one that's not for vertical games, but you can change the bezels on this stuff. We'll talk about that a little more in a second here, because there are some bezels I don't really care for. PC Engine TurboGrafx-16, tons of games for this. But the one thing I did notice scrolling through this is there's no TurboGrafx-16 games here. They're all PC Engine. So that's a little disappointing, but at the same time, it's not, because the PC Engine has the same games, TurboGrafx-16, and a ton more. TurboGrafx had I think less than 100 games released in the US. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty damn sure. But those games were all on the PC Engine as well. So you have a ton of exclusive stuff on here. Really awesome. PC Engine CD, awesomeness. The big one's definitely going to be that Dracula X Rondo of Blood. You got Bonk 3. So there's some TG16 stuff, CD anyway, on there. Super Graphics, the 5 included games for this expensive ass console. Man, I almost bought a Super Graphics, but there's really no point just for 5 games. But we'll take a look at that in a second. Game Boy Advance, hundreds of games here. Tons of awesomeness. Game Boy Color, really cool. This is one of them. I don't like the bezel, but you can change it. We'll look at that in a second. Original Game Boy. And there's really some cool stuff on here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Super Mario Land DX, the ROM hack of Super Mario Land is on here. There are going to be a handful of ROM hacks on this build, but they're quality ROM hacks from what I've seen so far. So that's definitely awesome. NES, can't go wrong with NES. Tons of NES games. Really cool stuff. You could change the one thing I did notice this with this. We'll take a look in a second. Oh my God, this 25th anniversary Super Mario Bro is on here. Don't really care for it, but it's on there. You could change the palette colors and stuff. There's tons of options, man. Super Nintendo, all the Super Nintendo games. There's some ROM hacks here as well. That's where I initially saw that there was some ROM hacks when I was looking for Super Mario World, because I did test every system. You can't test every game, but I tested every system to check this out. And I always default to Super Mario World. So I did see Super Mario World Return to Dinosaur Land is on here. And that is a quality ROM hack for the Super Nintendo. Virtual Boy, kind of weird playing Virtual Boy through emulation, just because, you know, the games were built for that depth and you don't get that. So if you really want to play some black and red gaming, there you go. 32X. I believe the last time I checked out 32X on a previous build, the bezel was incorrect. I might be wrong, but I remember there was one system that the bezel was incorrect, but every system on here, the bezel it's correct. But you can go in, there's usually alternates for the bezels if you don't like them. Dreamcast, handful of games. I don't think every Dreamcast game is going to run well on this system, but we do have a handful of games, and I've tested all of them actually. They run very well. Game Gear, complete library. Master System, you're going to have some of the Brazil games on here as well, and a few other regions, so pretty damn cool. Amazing that this thing was supported for so long in Brazil. Mega Drive or Genesis, complete library there, and some European games as well. Mega CD, Sega CD, hells yes. Not a ton of games for the system, but there's definitely a lot of quality ones. Popful Mail. Hey, you can night trap it up if you really want to. Pretty cool. Lunar, Eternal Blue, and the Silver Star Story. Pretty awesome. SG-1000 on here, representing if you really want to go back and play some SG-1000. Neo Geo Pocket and Pocket Color. Pocket Color, I really dug this system, man. The SNK versus Capcom Match of the Millennium was an amazing little fighting game. 2 buttons, I know, but amazing. The regular Neo Geo Pocket, PlayStation Portable, PSP, handful of games there. I think that's the same thing as like Dreamcast. Not everything's going to play well. I've tested all of these except for the Mega Man, one of the Mega Man games, but not everything's going to run well. That's why there's only a handful of games here. PlayStation 1. So the cool thing with RetroBoot 0.8 is that they do have it where it supports the original 20 built-in PlayStation games. So boom, you have them here. Plus on this pre-built image, this 64 gigabyte build, there's tons of awesome classics on here. So pretty cool, because if you don't want to mess with auto bleem or, you know, booting into the PlayStation Classic to play PlayStation games, if you don't want to fill up your drive with, you know, box art, that kind of thing, this is a cool option because you have a lot of emulator options. Everything's cleanly laid out. You can still play your PlayStation games on here. So with that, taking a look at all the systems, let's go ahead and jump into just a handful of games real quick to see what things look like. Not really play them, just to see what they look like with the bezels and that they actually run. I've extensively tested this build and I am amazed. There we go. We got the bezel there. Everything boots up. If you want to exit out of the game, you would just hit select and start, and then you would just close content. If you hit circle, you'll go back. You could pick a different system or game if you wanted to. But there is that. Save states, load states, all that good stuff. You can add to favorites, which is pretty cool. There is a favorites folder on here. Your on-screen overlays, which is kind of important to me because I don't like every bezel that's on here. You can go into overlay preset and scroll through and find whatever system you're on. And sometimes, not always, but there'll be alts. You can already see that, like Game Boy, there's several alts, and then Game Boy Color as well. Let's find Sony PlayStation Alt. Let's see what that one looks like. Oh, the other thing, if you're just not a fan of bezels, you can just turn them off right here. Display overlay off or on. There we go. Before we look at that overlay, just so we can get it out of the way, there's tons of options here. If you don't like the controller setup, you can change it, but so far everything has been mapped properly, in my opinion. Like Sega Genesis, it's, you know, this controller is not shaped like a Genesis controller, but it works just fine. Like it would be A, B, C, and then like X, Y, Z. So it works. A lot of the games are just 3 buttons anyway, so the A, B, C to me is good, with square being A, X being B, circle being C. So really cool. What else do we got? In options, tons of things you can mess around with. If you just don't want to be hassled with that, you don't have to mess with it. Latency controls or options, you can do the run ahead latency. If you go too many number of frames ahead, it will start tweaking up the game. I've tested this using the run ahead use second instance on a couple systems, and it's just kind of hit and miss. I have messed with just skipping ahead like 2 frames, and it works just fine. Anything I've gone over 2 frames, it starts to really get messed up. But that's where you would turn that on. Run ahead to reduce latency on or off. Default is just off. You may not even notice a difference, but it's there if you want to mess with it. Disk control for PlayStation 1, if you need to change discs, it's there. Select and start gets you into it. So there we go. This is the other bezel. Looking good. Let's see. Let's see a little intro here. A warrior takes sword in hand, clasping a gem to his heart. Holy crap, man. I was so addicted to this game. At some point, I have to replay it. But there we go. Don't want to spend too much time in one system. What else? Let's go to Dreamcast. Let's see GigaWing 2. I already know this game plays fairly well. You always get that little scramble screen when it first boots up. It's okay. The Dreamcast, don't trip. Nice little bezel. Looks good to me. We actually have some Dreamcast content coming up. I have the ultimate original Dreamcast coming up. A real official Dreamcast, but just the ultimate modded Dreamcast. Unbelievable. I am like extremely happy to have this in my possession. And I think, you know, some of you guys will appreciate it as well. So I want to share that with you guys in a video coming up, hopefully in the next couple days. I love the Dreamcast so much, man. So many stories. I'll share some of that in the dedicated Dreamcast video. So much stuff I could talk about with this system. But here we go, GigaWing. Let's just pick that little weird, freaky girl. I don't know if we should have picked her. She looks a little too young. But we don't care about story when it comes to horizontal shooters or vertical shooters or any shooters. We don't care about the damn story. We just want to shoot some shits up. And that's where we're at. This game runs very well. I've played a few different characters on this build. And I do believe the stages are different. You start in a different stage or something. And plays and runs very well. So there's that. Boom. GigaWing. Game Boy. Let's check out that Super Mario. I want to show you something with the bezel here, because I really don't like some of these handheld bezels. The other ones like Neo Geo Pocket, Game Gear, Atari Lynx are fine, but the ones that are defaulted on this build for the Nintendo handhelds, I don't like them. I'm just being honest. I do not like them, and I'll explain why as soon as we get into this game. So Super Mario Land DX, obviously it's not going to run as a Game Boy game. It's going to run as like a Game Boy Color game, but it's going to use the bezel for the Game Boy. This is why I don't like this bezel. You got Mario standing there, just staring at you. He's mad dogging your ass while you're playing a game. And then Luigi's in the back over there. I don't know what the hell he's doing. These kind of bezels are distracting as hell to me. I cannot sit there and play a game when I have characters on the screen. If it's just like some graphics in the background, like themed after Nintendo or whatever, and then the Game Boy right there, I could deal with that. But characters over top of the screen or over top of the system, I can't dig that, man. I can't dig that. But there are alternates, and for some of these, you would have to change like the aspect ratio. I'll show you. We could just turn it off, and you're just greeted to that, or you can change it. But like I said, some of these you will have to change the aspect ratio because some of them just don't look right. So that was Game Boy. I'm not sure which one we were on, but let's go to that one. So there's that. Yeah, you would have to change the aspect ratio to a bigger version for this to fit well. But these kind of bezels I deal with a little better than those other handheld ones. It's always the handheld ones that they do stuff like that with. But there you go. Let's see what else. Let's check out a TurboGrafx-CD game, Bonks 3. Like I said, everything, the bezels are different for everything. You do have those alternate bezels to change from. Just wanted to kind of showcase all this running. I have not ran into any issues, just personal preference type things. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. But yeah, this stuff runs extremely well. A lot of people are going to dig this, being able to do these things. You know, some people definitely, if you want to RetroPie bro it up, be my guest. But people love to have options. Some people don't want to mess with a RetroPie. Some people want to mess with something like this. And if you can get this for cheap, man, PlayStation Classic for cheap and get a cheap USB drive. I mean, the USB drive I'm using on this was $10, dude. Link will be in the description for all the items I use for my PlayStation Classic. The new recommended 128 gigabyte build drive that you don't have to do a power mod to use. I'll have that linked as well if you want to take a look. But yeah, some people are really going to dig this, and I was super excited to share this with you guys. But there we go. Everything running, everything looking good, complete libraries for a lot of these games. More information on my Facebook group if you want to peep out PlayStation Classic hacking, want to know more about RetroBoot, that kind of thing. Everything will be there to take a look at if you are interested. Always tons of help there. I'll have the link to the Reddit page as well, so you could look at that. But definitely join that Facebook group. Only if you're a cool dude or girl. If you're a dick, don't join my Facebook group. Stay away. We don't want you. But if you're just looking for a little bit of help or you want to contribute to the community, be my guest. Join up. That's what I'm talking about. Blazing Star, such an amazing game. But you see it running. I just didn't want to test everything because this video is already going on for quite a while. But yes, you could just boot this up and start playing your games. You don't have to mess with the bezels, but you can if you want. Shaders, that kind of thing. Everything is just pre-set up for you to start playing and enjoying the games. So there we go. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up on this and give you my impressions. I'm really digging this. I think I'm going to leave this on my 64 gigabyte drive because I do have that other 128 gigabyte, the Samsung one setup that does have RetroBoot on it. I don't really play these games like this, but I still think this is pretty neat. But I really dug the build on this, the 128 gigabyte build that we did the previous video on. If you want to take a look at that, my little PlayStation Classic playlist will be linked down there as well. So I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Really do. You mean the world to me. We're about 60,000 subscribers now. We're about to hit it any day now. On to 100,000. Help me get there, guys. Really do appreciate it. I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-byes, and boom. Bye!